Starting in prehistoric times and going to the beginning of the Roman Empire and on to the present day, the relationship between man and wolf has had its ups and downs. Though they are ancestors of man's best friend, wolves themselves are generally feared and hated due to their ferocity and strength. On some occasions, though, they have been known to help people in need. Hi, this is Jenny and welcome to Real Life Mysteries. Today we're going to share two amazing stories of people that had their lives changed by wolves. But before we go into more detail, please remember to subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so you'll be notified when we upload the next video. Ready? Let's begin. Our first story is about a woman that was rescued from a terrible blizzard by a pack of wolves. Not only that, but the wolves were with her when she gave birth and then stayed with her until help arrived. An American woman, Mary Kranick from Alaska, found herself trapped in a snowstorm when she went into labor. She gave birth to a healthy baby who weighed 3.4 kilograms or about 7.5 pounds. Thankfully, though, she wasn't alone when she gave birth, though she never expected wolves to be her midwives. They acted like I was a member of their pack, recalls the then 25-year-old secretary from Talkeetna, Alaska. If they hadn't cared, my baby wouldn't have survived. The wolves gave us warmth, and one of them bit the umbilical cord and helped me to take the baby in my arms to feed him. After that, they watched over us until help came. Mary's story took place when she was in the 8th month of her pregnancy. One day, while driving home, she got caught in a snowstorm. Her car skidded off the road and into a ditch where she couldn't get it out without help. Mary stepped out of the car, hoping to get a ride from someone passing by, but the storm had practically become a blizzard and no one could be seen traveling down the back road in either direction. The desperate woman decided to try to walk the almost 5-kilometer or 3-mile distance back into town. She had walked about 800 meters or about half a mile, battling snow, wind, and cold when she suddenly went into labor. It was a desperate situation. Thankfully, she saw a place where there was a little more shelter and less snow under a group of trees near a hill. She decided to walk toward it, knowing she wouldn't be able to make it back to her car, much less back into town. Mary barely got there when she fainted out of pain and fear. I was out for only a few minutes, and when I woke up, I was surrounded by a pack of wolves. My head was lying on the back of a big wolf, probably the leader of the pack, said Mary. All in all, a group of 10 wolves surrounded her in a tight ring, protecting her from the cold. I really didn't have time to be scared, and honestly, I was more worried about being in labor. About half an hour later, I gave birth to my baby. A female wolf carefully bit the umbilical cord, and then the wolves licked the baby, she recounted. The remaining wolves stayed close to Mary, keeping her warm. Mary tried to take the baby in her arms, but she didn't have the strength. The same wolf who bit the umbilical cord pushed the baby toward Mary, using her nose. The baby was crying as Mary took him into her arms. Miraculously, he was alive. After that, she nursed him. The wolves never left me. They created a dense wall that protected me from the blizzard, as if I was a member of their pack that needed help. The alpha of the pack licked the snow and tears from my cheeks. Not long after, Mary's relatives, who had gotten worried when she didn't make it home, found the abandoned car on the side of the road and immediately started to search for her. When they saw a pack of wolves on the side of a hill, they thought something terrible had happened. They started shooting at the wolves to scare them off, and the wolves promptly fled when they heard the gunshots. The sight the rescuers saw when the wolves dispersed was truly astonishing. A woman with a newborn child in her arms, leaning against a tree. No one could believe that both Mary and her baby were okay. The wolves didn't completely abandon Mary, though, even when faced with guns and other humans. Rather, they watched over her from a safe distance as the rescuers carried her to a waiting car. "I don't think they'll forget me," Mary said. One day I'll come back with my son, and I'm sure they'll be here to meet us. If it weren't for the witnesses that found Mary, nobody would have believed this story ever took place. Forest workers and local hunters refuse to comment on this case. They say that they have never heard of it. People have also tried to convince Mary not to try to find the wolves again, but Mary won't listen to them, and she is waiting for the day when she can again visit the wolves who helped her to give birth to her son. It's an amazing story, isn't it? And now we go on to our second story, which comes from the other side of the Atlantic. Marcos Rodriguez Muntaha was born in Spain in the late 1940s. His family faced hard economic times, and when Marcos was around 6 or 7, his father sold him to a wealthy landowner who wanted him to tend his herd of goats. The landowner took him to live in the Sierra Morena mountains with an elderly goat herd who was supposed to teach Marcos how to look after the flock. Unfortunately, only a few months later, the goat herd went out to hunt rabbits and never came back. Marcos later found him dead, apparently having suffered a heart attack. Left to fend for himself, Marcos knew he had to learn how to find food and shelter on his own. He avoided the landowner when he came up to check on Marcos and the goat herd, since Marcos didn't want to be sent back to his abusive family. Looking for shelter one day, he found a wolf den with cubs in it. He crawled inside and fell asleep. Later, the older wolves came back. "They weren't sure whether to eat me or adopt me, I think," he says. "But they let me stay there, probably because I smelled like them. I used to spend time playing with the cubs. Since I was there, I'd share food with them. If they hadn't let me stay and eat with them, I would have died." Later, Marcos learned how to communicate with the animals in the forest by using a combination of grunts, howls, and partially remembered words. He also learned to get his own food by imitating the animals he saw on the mountain, like birds and wild boars, as well as wolves. He lived in the mountains from 1953 to 1965, away from people and all civilization. However, he says he only felt lonely when he couldn't hear any noises in the forest. After 12 years, this period of his life came to an end when he was 19 years old. Some forest rangers had received reports of a wild-looking young man dressed in deerskin wandering around the mountain. They found him and forced him back to civilization, where he was hard-pressed to try to fit in after having spent so many years surrounded by animals. He was taken to a convent where the nuns had to teach him how to talk again and how to be a part of a society that was completely foreign to him. Today, Marcos is in his 70s and lives in a small town in Galicia. He still spends much of his time walking the countryside. He's had a hard time fitting in with humans and even now prefers the solitude of nature. Animals don't lie or cheat like humans do. You never have to worry about an animal having an ulterior motive. Well, that's all for today. What do you think of these stories? Do you know of any others like them? Please leave your comments below. As always, if you like this video, please subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so you'll know when we upload the next one. Once again, this is Jenny, and I'll see you next time.